Hello, welcome. I'm happy to be here. I hope you guys are doing all right. Today's gonna be a really fun day. We're learning a great concept. I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but there's been something that we've been doing on this walkthrough that's on the walkthroughs the last few classes that has sort of been bugging me a little bit because we haven't quite learned enough stuff about designing these web pages yet, and today we're going to solve a big problem. I'm going to feel so much better after today's walkthrough. We're going to talk about templates today. It's a great concept, very useful concept. Just before we get into that though, just a reminder that your assignment's due today, Web Caesar. I know I've talked to some people who've got it done, which is great. If you don't quite have it finished yet, that's probably your main priority for tonight. Make sure you get that finished and submitted before you leave here today. Talk to your TFs, talk to me, let us know what you need so that you can get that done. And then the next assignment, I believe, has been posted. User sign up has been posted. So I don't remember what the due date is. It's on Canvas, it's on the website. Double check what that is. If I set a date right now, I'd just be making something up. So check that, make sure you're looking at that and get started on that as soon as you can. Keep that ball rolling, keep everything moving. I think that's all the reminders that I've got. Unless there's any questions, we can go and hop into today's material. We're gonna talk about templates. So let's just start with the basics. What's a template? What is a template? Somebody describe to me in English, couple sentences, what a template is? Or what, the other question I'd take as well, why do we use them? What the heck's the point? Yeah, in the back. All right, so we got HTML in our templates. That's what templates are for, is for keeping HTML. Why? Why do we use them? We did HTML last week, right? We did HTML before. It was working just fine. Our website was working. It wasn't like totally working, but it was doing stuff, doing what we told it to do. So what's the big deal? Why would we want to create separate files for HTML? I'm sorry? Less error prone? Why? Less muddy? I agree with that. Right now, we've got everything all sitting in one file, and you know, our website doesn't do a whole lot yet. Imagine if our website did all the stuff that a Facebook or Netflix does. That code would get massive very quickly. So for a lot of why templates are useful, just think of it as organization. It just helps us keep things organized. But there are other advantages of using templates besides organization, besides keeping things clean.
You can obviously use templates over a whole wide array of places, so that...
Yeah, you're exactly right. We can use templates all over our website. We can reuse templates. So if I have a template that I like and it matches multiple circumstances, I can reuse that same template over and over and over again. The way we've been doing things, we have variables that we can reuse over and over again, but then we have to change every little thing inside of the variables. So templates make it much more reusable. We can make our HTML much more reusable across our website. Make things much more flexible. It should ultimately reduce the amount of code that we have to write. It increases the number of files that we have, right? That's a fact. But it should reduce the overall amount of code that we have to write for our website if we use them properly. So let's talk about a couple of features of templates. How do I put placeholders in my templates? What does that look like? What do I see? Curly bracket and a percent sign. That's an indication that I'm gonna do some kind of a placeholder so I can, it's kind of like a variable, right? But there's other things I can do too. I can do loops, I can do if statements. How do those differ from the Python loops and if statements that we've been using, aside from the curly bracket business? Yeah.
You have to tell it to end.
We have to tell it to end. Why? Why is that necessary, do you think? In Python, we don't have to do that. What do we use in Python to tell us when it's over? Yeah. We use white space. So why can't we just do the same thing in our templates?
HTML doesn't pick white space.
Bingo. HTML really doesn't care about your white space. It's not having it. It does not care. So that's not a way for us to mark things in loops and if statements anymore. So we now have to explicitly say, here's the end of the thing. Here's the ending. Cool. What does it mean to render a template? What does that actually mean? What are we doing when I render a template? What information am I going to provide when I render a template? Name of the file, sure. What else? What else? So think about what we just talked about. We talked about placeholders. So if I have a placeholder in my template, then when I render it, that's when I give it the actual information to stick into those placeholders. That's when I actually fill in those gaps. It's when I render it. That's really what rendering is. A template by itself, I mean, the name template tells you what it is, right? It's just a template. It doesn't contain any actual information. It just tells you what you want that structure to look like. Rendering it says, okay, take this structure and put some actual stuff into it. And I'll pass it a variable or multiple variables. It says, here's the stuff that I want you to put into this structure. That's what it means to render a template. Does that make sense? So the template by itself doesn't help us. The template by itself tells us the structure, but we have to actually render the template. We actually have to fill in all the gaps, give it some information for that template to be used on our website. We good? All right, let's talk about extensions. What does it mean to extend a template or use a template extension? What am I doing? Linking. Those are called templates, right? So yeah, linking templates to each other. It actually reminds me of a concept that we've already talked about towards the end of Unit 1. Does anybody remember? Modules, close, getting closer, yeah. There was a concept we talked about at the very end of Unit 1 that feels a lot like this. Not exactly, they're not exactly the same, but they're similar. Inheritance, yeah, good. You just saved me from trying to think of a word that rhymes with inheritance. Thank you. Yes, feels a lot like inheritance. So it's not exactly the same, not by any means. Don't walk out of here thinking that they mean the same thing. They just feel kind of similar. Extending a template allows me to take some code and reuse it without having to type it out a whole bunch of times. So we'll actually see an example of that today. At a high level, we've covered templates. This is it. This is all the review questions that I had for you. I think the real magic is seeing templates in action, seeing templates being used. So what we're going to do next is take our FlickList application and start to rewrite it using these templates. We're only going to do part of it. You're going to do the other part as your studio today. But before we switch over to that, are there any questions about templates or any of the stuff from the prep work? One thing that I want to mention real quick before we hop into the walkthrough, the prep work shows you two different ways that you can use templates. The first way had you set up a path, and then you had to access the template and say template.render or something like that. You're more than welcome to use that, but I'm not going to. That sounds like more work. The second way allows you to keep things a little bit more simple, keep things a little bit more straightforward. I would say there's less moving parts for the second way. So that's the way I generally prefer. That's what I'm going to do in the walkthrough today. If you want to try and do it the other way, you're more than welcome to do so. Yeah.
What is the benefit for using the first way? Like, why do we?
Yeah, so why do we learn how to do it the first way? That's a great question. The answer is that while the second method is very much more straightforward and simpler, for complex websites, it is too simple. It does not provide us enough of what we need to do. So as we're starting out, as we're doing simple websites like FlickList, the second way is much easier to get things up and running, but as you start building more and more complex websites, you're going to see that it actually isn't quite flexible enough to get you where you need to go. So knowing how to do things, setting it up manually, setting up the path, is going to be the proper way to do it for those kinds of situations. Great question. Any other questions before we hop over and do some coding, before we do the walkthrough? All right, so our goal today is, in fact, we might do a little refresher for starters. I'm going to go into my git bash here, and I'm still on the Studio 3 branch. I'm still from where we were last time, right? I'm still where we were at the end of the last class. You can see I've already loaded in fact, I don't even know if I closed this thing since the last class or not. This might even still be the same command window from last time. So I've already loaded my environment. I'm sitting on the Studio 3 branch. I'm actually, you don't have to do this, but I'm gonna do this just so we're on the same page. I'm actually gonna run this real quick because there's something that's very important that I want us to keep in mind today as we work on this. You don't need to do this step if you don't want to. That's totally fine. But I want to show you where we're at. This is where our website looks like at the end of the last class. At the end of class today, well, at the end of the walkthrough at least, the studio will change things maybe a little bit, but I want this to work exactly the same way. I want this to work exactly the same way. We're not going to add any new functionality to this thing. We're not going to add any more content. We're not going to put anything else on this website. I want it to work exactly as it does now. But I do want to change all of the code to use templates instead of the way that we were using it. What's that called when I rewrite a whole bunch of code but I don't actually change how something works? Refactoring, yes, refactoring. That's what we're doing today. We are refactoring, and actually this is, in my opinion, one of the most satisfying parts of programming. Taking code that is functional but less than perfect and making it maybe not perfect but closer to perfect, better, improving upon it, organizing it in a better way, making it work more efficiently, but doing exactly the same thing. Today is an exercise in refactoring. I think the studio might actually have you add one or two little new things to it, but in the walkthrough it's just going to be refactoring. So, all right, I'm going to go back and stop this and go ahead and, as we usually do, check and make sure everything's committed. I've already committed my stuff. If you haven't committed your stuff, go ahead and commit it, because we're about to switch branches. We want to switch branches. So once you've committed your work, go ahead and check out the walkthrough, what is it, 4? Walkthrough 4 branch. And if you open it up in your code editor, you'll notice that it's basically where we left off from last time. And there's not a whole lot. It might look a little bit different, but it's basically where we left off at the end of class, and it's kind of long. This is something that I want us to think about today as well. I've got 137 lines in here. It's not huge by any means, but I think you could see that if we kept going down the path that we have been going down, this file is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So what can we do to help manage some of this stuff? Well, we want to take the HTML code that we have and get it out of this file. I don't want to see any HTML in this file by the time I'm done. None. Not even a little bit. I want it all out. All of my HTML should live in the templates. This code should just be functional stuff, behavioral stuff. How does my website work? No HTML whatsoever. So we need to make some templates. Where do templates go? There needs to be a folder called templates, and we don't have that. So, I can come back to the command line and say ls, and you'll see I don't have a templates folder. I need one. How do I create a new folder? Make directory, mkdir is the command, and then I just type the name of the directory that I want. Templates. Okay? So far so good? We just made a new folder for us, and in fact, if you go to your code editor, you should see that the folder showed up. It actually recognized the folder. Here it is, templates. There's nothing in it yet. We haven't put anything in it yet, but here it is. So for this walkthrough, we want to create a template for the front page, the page with the form on it. We also are going to create the template for the cross-off. It says this movie's been crossed off of your list. The adding a movie template, that'll be for you to do during studio today. But we need to start creating some templates and copying some of this code over. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I guess we should just start at the beginning, start with that very front page. We'll create that front that front page. So we need to create a template for that front page. So, whoops, wrong thing, sorry. How do I make a new file in the command line? Touch. So if you want to, you can cd into your templates directory, and then we're going to create a new template. Touch, and we'll call it, I'm trying to remember what they call it in the repository so that it looks kind of the same. I think they call it edit. I think they call it edit.html. I could be wrong about that. The name is not super important, I suppose. But we'll create this new file called edit.html. This is the very front part of our website, the stuff with the text box and the drop-down box in it. Okay? So now, I'm going to come over to my code editor, and I should actually see that file now. There it is. And it's blank. That's not a surprise. We just created it. We didn't put anything in it yet. So now I want to take all of the HTML that I would expect to find on that front page and start dumping it in here. I can actually go find it in, my main.py and just start copying it over. The first thing's going to be this stuff right here, actually, right? Here's the first stuff. So I'll copy that over and paste it in. Now be careful. I'm actually going to be a little bit cautious about deleting stuff from here. Eventually, I do want to clean this file up and remove extra code, but especially when we're just starting out, I'm going to not be so itchy to start deleting stuff. I want to make sure that I'm done with it before I really clear it out. So that's going to be first. What came after this section for that? What was the next piece on our website, HTML-wise? I think it was this form down here, right? So I'll go grab this. Okay. Come back to my template and I'll stick it in. And then the next piece that came after that was the drop down, right? To remove a movie. So in other words, it was this cross-off form. But wait a second, we kind of have a problem now. Here's some of the HTML. Here's some more of the HTML up here, right? So I can copy it in. I can take this and I can copy it in. Is this allowed? Am I allowed to do something like this inside of my template? That's not going to work, that bracket 0. That's not going to work. But I do have a way of inserting stuff into templates. Right? We do have a way of inserting placeholder stuff into templates. And that's what we need to do. In fact, really what we need to see is this needs to be replicated somehow, but we need to do it with the template. We need to do it the template way of doing things, not the Python way of doing things, but the template way of doing things. So if we look at this code right here, this loop, I want to try and recreate this loop inside of my template. That's my goal. So how do I put a loop? How do I put a loop in my template? What do I need to start typing if I want to put a loop right here? Curly bracket %, and then what? For, and then here I need to make up a loop. It feels kind of like a Python loop. It's not exactly the same, but it feels kind of like a Python loop. We can actually use this loop as an example. For movie in, and then will I be able to call this get current watch list function from my template? No, I cannot. But what can I do instead? I can't call this function, so what am I going to do? How am I going to get the information about these movies into the template? What's that called again? Rhymes with Blender? When we render this template, we'll pass in a list of movies. We'll pass in a list of movies. So I don't have to worry about where those movies are coming from. I just have to assume that I'm going to have one when the page gets rendered. That's why we're treating it more like a placeholder. So I think saying something like for movie in, I don't know, watch list, something like that. That'll work. Now I have to specify what I want to be displayed inside of this loop. Well, it's just this stuff, right? This is the HTML that I want to generate right here that I've got highlighted. So I can copy this, but I do need to change it a little bit What needs to change about this line to make it correct? What needs to change about this line here? These bracket zeros are no good. What can I use in place of them? Movie. Are we good? Double bracket, good. Needs to be double brackets. Oops. So let's just pause for a second, make sure we understand what's going on. I'm iterating over this list of movies that I've called watch list. I don't know what's on this watch list. Whoever renders this page is gonna have to tell me what watch list is. I don't know what it is right now. I don't get to find that out until this page gets rendered. But I want them to pass in a list of movies called watch list. I'll iterate through it and I'll generate these options, substituting each movie in. Substituting each movie in. We're almost done. There's one final piece. What are we missing? End for. We need to explicitly end. Is it one word or two? I always forget. One word? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm missing a bracket too. Thank you. I thought I typed it, but whatever. My brain is a little off today. So my claim to you, and I hope you believe me, but if you don't, make sure you understand what's going on here. My claim is that this text that I've highlighted here, is going to replicate what we had going on right here. It's going to do the same thing for us. That is my claim. That is my claim. And if you don't believe me, we'll actually get a chance to try it out here in just a little bit. I think we're almost done with this first template. We are almost finished with this first template. I've got my two forms, and then the thing that came after the form, what do we call that? The footer. So I go to my code and I find, here's the footer, it's just 2 tags. Okay. And I will paste that down at the end. We have made our very first template. We have not used the template yet, but we've made our very first template. Before we move on, I'm going to make at least 1 or 2 more templates before we're done today. But before we move on, I want to test this one. I want to test this template out, make sure that it works. So let's go back to main.py and think about how this template is going to change the way that this stuff works. The route that contains all this stuff is this one right here, correct? Yeah, we kind of forgot a piece. What about these error messages? We didn't take those into account yet? That's a little tricky, right? Maybe we could just ignore those for a second and just worry about, we'll come back, we'll double back and talk about the errors in just a moment. Let's see if we can just get what we've done so far working, and then we'll come back for the errors. I want to render this template, and as I render this template, I need to pass in a list of movies. So, where do I typically render templates in my code? Where does that usually go? It's going to go down here at the return. How do I render templates? What's that called again? I think it's just render. So you could say template.render. That's the first way that we showed you how to do it. But there's the second way, render_template. And it doesn't recognize it right now. Why not? Why doesn't it recognize this right now? We have to import it. So up here at the top, import render template. Okay. Now remember, just saying render template isn't enough down here. I actually have to provide some information to this in order to make it work. What information do I need to provide? I'm sorry? The name of the template. So edit.html. What else do I need to provide to it? Any of the placeholders that I've got in here I need to specify. them. So this watch list, I need to specify what this watch list is. which is really just this list of movies that we've got up here. Right here. This is it. Get current watch list. So I'll say, whoops, sorry. I'm all over the place right now. So I'll come back to this and I'll say watch list equals get current watch list. This here, watch list, I named it that way on purpose. This is referring to this. So it's going to take the values from my Python code, that list of movies, and stick them into the template right here. Loop through the list and generate these options. If I did everything correctly, which it's possible I made a mistake somewhere, we'll find out in a second. If I did everything correctly, I should be able to run this site. Python main. Whoops, oh. I'm in the wrong directory. It says no such file or directory because I'm in the templates. How do I get out of here? cd dot dot. Good. Let's try again now. Start this up. Go back here. If I did everything correctly, I would expect this web page to look exactly the same. If I didn't do things correctly, it might give me an error or it might look different. Or it might do nothing. I don't know. Do I need to open a new tab? Try again. Come on, web page, you can do it. Okay, it took a second to load up. I'm not sure why, but it loaded up. It loaded up. It looks the same, I know, a little anticlimactic, but you should take comfort in the fact that we are now using a template. We're using a template to do this, not the HTML that's in our main.py file. We're using a template. Any questions so far? We're not done. I've got a few other things on our to-do list for today, but any questions about what we've done so far? Yeah, of course. Python file. The only thing I really changed in the whole Python file is this very last line. That's it. Everything else is the same so far. Oops. Come on. I just wanted to, okay, whatever. This is the only line I think I've changed in the entire Python file. That line right there. Everything else is the same right now. Okay. Now, one thing that broke, actually, one thing I believe that is broken is the error message. So if I leave a blank thing here, that's something we did in the last studio. If I leave this box blank, it should tell me there's an error, right? If I hit that button, oh, actually it still works. Interesting. Interesting. That actually confuses me a little bit. Refresh the page and try again, I guess. That's a little confusing to me. Let's just refresh this guy. Yeah, what? Did I save the file? That's a good question. I did not. I did not. Thank you. My life is a lie. Parts of it. Not the whole thing. Just the last 5 minutes. All right. Okay, so now you can see that the URL still reflects the error message, but it doesn't show up on our page. It doesn't show up on our page. Because we didn't put it in the template. We didn't put the error message in the template. So let's fix that. Let's fix that real quick. I go over here. Now, here's a question I have for you. Do we always have an error message on this page? No. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. Can I reflect that in my template? Yes. How? An if. We're going to use an if. I'll say, oops, wrong symbol. If what? This is where things get, remember, this is a placeholder. So I'm really just checking a variable here, right? And I get to make up what that variable is called. So I might call it error. Or error message, or something along those lines, right? If I have an error message, if error message doesn't exist, will this be true or false? False. So this, whatever's in here won't happen. If I have an error message, then I'll just create a p tag, class equals error. And then I'll put the error message in there. How do I do that again? How do I put the error message in between this p tag? Curly brackets. Error message. And just like I saw with the loop, I have to do an end if to specify that this is over. So if there's an error message, this will show up. If there's not an error message, it won't. It won't show up. Yes, question?
If the error message is equal to an empty string?
Not an empty string. What would the error message be if this were to fail? What would we expect the error message to be? None. We'd expect it to be none.
So you're saying you don't have the variable?
I'm saying it would check to see if something was here and it wouldn't find it. It would be none. In fact, actually, let's look at the Python code and reason about this. Where does the error message come from? It comes from this line right here. If there's no error message here, what is this? What is the value of that? If I go look at the requests, right? I go look at the query parameters, I say, give me the error message, and there isn't one, what value does this variable have? None. None. Some of you said null. None is Python's way of saying null. It's not the same thing as false. It's not the same thing as an empty string. Those things actually exist, right? An empty string is something that actually exists. False is something that actually exists. The word none in Python represents a void, a gap, an emptiness. So none is what would happen here. None. So then if I want to then take this error message and give it to the template, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Do it when I render. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to say error message equals error. If I actually have something here, if it looked at the parameters and it found an error message, that message will be passed along and displayed, hopefully. If it looks at the parameters and it was not able to find an error message, this will be none. And then, when it checks this if statement, it'll see that it's none and it just won't do this. It won't do this thing. It won't put it in there. Let's save some stuff, unlike last time, and try it out. Let's try it out. I'm going to go back to my page. I saved everything. I promise you I did. I'm going to go back to the page, and I'm actually going to look at the source. I want to make sure that that p tag is not there. I'm going to look at the source, and hopefully I don't see the p tag down at the bottom here. I don't. It's empty. It's empty. So let's make an error, and then see if that p tag shows up. I hope it does. If I click this button, try to add an empty movie, hey, there's my error message. It exists now. The template is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. There's the p tag that was generated for me by the template with the if statement. What questions do you have? Any questions? We did it. Yes? Why is it error and not error element? So what is error element? Error element is, what is this? What is this stuff right here? What is that? That's HTML. I don't want to see HTML in here. In fact, we're at a point now where let's fix this. Let's get all the HTML crap out of here. I don't want this. Oh, we're missing this part, I guess. Did I put this in? Edit my watch list? Is that in my template? I skipped that part. So that would go, what, like right here, I guess? I missed a piece. This is just another reason why templates are great. In this file, I had HTML just kind of sprinkled in all over the place. So I forgot a piece. If I have a template, all my HTML is in one spot. It's all in one spot. It makes it much easier to find the pieces I'm looking for. So I skipped this. That was my bad. So what do I need? What do I actually need here? We need this. Done. Oh, whoops, I forgot I got a little overzealous, sorry. I need this guy. Everything else, my bad. Let's leave that comment in. So we took that function. It wasn't a huge function, right, to begin with. It's not like it was gigantic. But we took that whole function, turned it into 2 lines. 2 lines. Get the error, if it exists, whether or not it exists, and then pass all the stuff in. Done. Does that feel good? I hope it feels good. It feels good to me. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I feel much better, and it's gonna get even better. That's the best part. We're not even done yet. Oh man, it's gonna get even better. Let's do the cross-off page next. Let's do this. Let's do the crossed-off movie next. I want to take all the HTML stuff out that relates to this page and stick it in a template. So we'll call it, crossoff.html. Let's do it. I need to create a new template. We know how to do that. I got to stop my website though. Control C. So I'm going to go into my templates folder and I'm going to create I'm going to create my second template. I'll call it crossoff.html. All right. And now we can get to work. The HTML, let's pull up the file here. Templates, crossoff. So it's blank. We need to form this page. This page starts with the same stuff that we started with over here. It starts with all this stuff, right? Does it include that? I don't even remember if it includes that or not. We can look at our code to find out. It starts with the header. What's in the header? Is that thing in the header? I think maybe it is. Yeah, it is. It's in the header. So it starts with all of this that I've got highlighted. I'll paste that in. Then it has the message, the actual crossed off message, which we can find right here. This is another great reason why templates are useful to us. These 3 lines, while they certainly work, they get the job done. It looks kind of like a mishmash of stuff, right? What does the actual HTML look like? What is the first tag that I see on this page after the header? I heard 2 answers. See, and that just proves my point. This looks like a hot mess. It's one of those 2. It's either strike or P. Which one is it? It's hard to tell from here. It's hard to tell from here, but it's the P tag. If you follow the variables, you follow this chain of variables, you'll see it's the P tag. So over here, it'll be a lot more obvious because we'll see the P tag first, then we'll see the strike tag. I want to put the name of the movie inside of this strike tag, right? So that's a case that we need what do we need? We need the double curly brackets. We're going to do a placeholder. We'll call it cross off. Oh, come on. There we go. Movie. And then this is just the rest of the message, which I can get from the code. It says, has been crossed off your watch list, right? There's not a lot going on this page. Boom. Has been crossed off your watch list. Let's see if I can collapse this again so you guys can see. All right, good. This is basically the whole page. The only thing that we're missing then is the footer, which is going to be /body. Oops. Oh, it filled it in for me. Thank you. Wow. Just did it. Didn't even ask me at first. It was just like doing it. Okay. This template's a lot more straightforward. There's a lot less going on. We don't have any forms. We don't have anything really going on. We just have to substitute in the name of the movie, right? And then it'll put it in there. So I'll pause here for a second, see if there's any questions while I wait for you all to catch up. You Hear a lot of typing going on. So just like we saw last time, we now need to use this template. We need to render this template. So I'm going to go back, and instead of returning content here, we're going to render our template. Render template. Just like we saw last time, I need to provide the name of the template, what did I call it? crossoff.html. And then I need to provide it any placeholders that I have. I have a placeholder called crossed off movie, so I need to supply that. Crossed off movie equals, I think it's just going to be crossed off movie, isn't it? Now be careful here. I know this statement might look a little strange. Am I setting something? Oh, I didn't even type it right. Sorry. I know this statement might look a little strange. Am I just assigning a variable to itself? That makes no sense. That's not what we're doing. I want to make that very, very clear. That's not what's happening here. I'm taking a variable from Python. That's the right side. The right side of this equals is a variable from Python. It contains the name of a movie that came from a form that the user typed in, or they actually selected on the drop-down box, in this case. That's a Python variable. This, the word in blue on the left-hand side of the equal sign, that is the name of the placeholder in my template. It's not a Python variable. It's the name of the placeholder in my template. If it makes you feel better, change the name. If you don't like the fact that they're the same, change the name. Crossed movie. Make them a little bit different if it'll help you see the relationship between those two things. This value on the right is a Python variable. This value on the left is the name of the placeholder from my template. I'm taking the value of the Python variable so that I can substitute it in where that placeholder is in my template. That's what we're saying here. Let's try it. Let's try it and see if it works. I know. All right. I am in my templates folder. I don't want to be, so I'm going to go back. I do need to start up my application again, so we'll go ahead and start it up. Go back to my page here. Let's just get rid of this and start over from scratch. Okay, and it doesn't matter which movie you want to pick a movie and cross it off. And okay, we did something wrong. I didn't save my stuff. I didn't save my stuff. That's typical, Doug. Typical. Let's try it again. Oh, hey. All right, give it another shot. Hey, all right, good. This time it worked. Saving your stuff helps. It works. We're using the template now. Instead of all of that HTML mess in our code. We're using the template. So just like we did last time, I can actually go back to the Python here and remove some stuff. But I do want to be careful. There's some stuff that I need to keep. What am I going to be removing from here? Which lines? It's actually just these lines here, 81, 82, 83. I can't remove this. Why not? Why can't I remove this? This is our validation. That's what we did on Tuesday, right? This is our validation. Templates can't validate stuff for us. That's not what templates are for. Templates are just structured. They cannot validate stuff for us. If we need to validate stuff, that's actually exactly what should be in this file. Stuff like validation. That's exactly what should be in this file. There's no HTML involved here, right? There is not a single chunk of HTML in this. There is a string, but it's not HTML. I don't see any tags in it. It's just an error string. So, there's no HTML. It's fine to leave this validation piece in there. This is where it belongs. All the HTML is now gone. It's all gone. In fact, all this HTML up here, we're done with it, right? That's in our template. Oh, sorry. I have a hard time using this trackpad. This cross-off form, that's in our template now, right? So I don't need it in here anymore now. Boom, it's gone. This stuff was part of the cross-off form too. It's in my template now. I don't need it anymore. It's gone. This is the best part. Bye. This form for adding movies, that's in our template now. I don't need this HTML in here anymore. Boom, it's gone. The footer, the header, that's all in our template now. So get it out of there. Get it all out. I think there might be a little bit of HTML still in here. Maybe. Yeah, there's a little bit of HTML here. That's your guys' job for Studio, is to take care of the last little bit that we've got in here and some other stuff. But you'll notice that we started with 130 lines of code in this file. We're down to 70. Down to 70 something. We trimmed off a whole bunch of stuff, and our website works the same way that it did before. That's the other important thing. We didn't break anything, and well, we did break stuff in the process, but we fixed it. We fixed it. We now have these templates to help keep things organized. I've got one last thing to talk to you about, but before I do, any questions? I've got one last thing I want to talk to you about. Yeah?
Can you just sort of slowly scroll through your main.py? I was having trouble following the bouncing back and forth between the templates and the main, and I just want to see like what blocks you still have.
Check out the Studio 4 branch. It's all in there. That's true for every single walkthrough in Studio. If I lose you, which I apologize, I know I go too fast sometimes. I'm sorry about that. But if I lose you, just check out the next branch. It's all in there. It might look slightly different, but it's all there. There's actually one thing that we haven't done yet as part of this walkthrough that I do want to do. Are there any other questions about what we've done so far? Yeah.
If we go back to the edit HTML file, I'm just trying to figure out what you can use in there for your for loops. If you go down to the for loop and add for that's not the for loop that I'm used to using. So automatically my mind goes to try to use the one for I in range, blah blah blah. Could you have used that here? What can you use here is my question. Any Python statements?
Well, it's not exactly Python. I think actually you could use a loop that would iterate through indexes. However, I would encourage you to break that habit of using those loops. They are useful. Those types of loops iterating through, for I in range, those loops are useful. I'm not saying you should stop using them entirely, but this loop, iterating through a list, is much easier, much more appropriate for this situation. So, but can you do for I in range? I gotta be honest with you. I'm a little unsure. My gut is telling me yes, you can do something like that. Maybe the syntax is a little bit different. My gut is telling me you can, but that's my gut and not my brain. So let's find out. Jinja to 4i and yeah, let's see. Range in Jinja 2 inside a for loop. Can we do it? Here's somebody trying to do exactly what you were just talking about. For I in range. It's just like Python, yeah, sure. According to Stack Overflow, yes, you can. It says you can. Yep.
I must not have had it set up right.
The syntax is a little bit different. So, having the brackets and everything is a little bit different. In fact, actually, I think I'm actually a little surprised that it accepted this because there should be a colon there, I believe. So that's, and a colon here as well. But it took it without the colon. So you can already see that it's kind of Python-like, but it's also being a little bit lenient. It's being nice to me. I always forget those stupid colons. And this time it actually worked. That's not true when we were doing Unit 1 stuff. I forgot those colons all the time and it broke. So
this is Jinja
Words. Yeah, Jinja doesn't.
Jinja is using a very Python-like syntax of doing things. It might even be Python, but there's something else going on. It's not just a direct execution of Python. It's going through Jinja, and Jinja's doing some stuff to it along the way. So it's very Python-esque. I mean, this line would run in Python directly as written. But this doesn't exist in Python, so that's already a clue that it's not exactly the same thing. It's a little bit different. It's a modified version of Python that we know.
You don't need the call.
And we don't need the colons, apparently, although I would still encourage you to put them in. I'm just really bad at that. I don't know why. All right, there's one final thing I want to do to wrap this up. You'll notice we got two templates. They look beautiful. I've got this edit template with the form stuff on it. I've got this cross-off template over here with some other stuff on it. There is actually some duplication. I've got some HTML that's on both, namely the header and the footer. In fact, every single page that we add onto here is going to have that same code, the header and the footer. It's going to be on every single page that we put on this website. So it would be nice if there was a way that we could just write that code once and then reuse that code over and over again. What am I talking about? Extension. Extension. We want to extend the template. So let's do that. That'll be the last part of the walkthrough today. We're going to create one more template. One more template. So I'm going to stop this one final time. Go into my templates folder. Oops. I'm going to create one more template. I'm going to call it base.html. Base.html is going to hold the header and the footer stuff, the duplicate stuff that I want to reuse over and over again. So I'll create that file. Now we just have to specify what goes in it. I'm going to come back to my code and open up this base.html file. Now I said I want this to have the header and the footer in it. So that's easy to do. Go to one of these pages, it doesn't really matter which one. Grab the header, that's this stuff. Right? Grab the header, boom. Leave a little bit of space. Grab the footer, which is just these two tags here. Grab that stuff and stick those in. So the idea is that I've got my header, I've got my footer, and then I want the other templates to be able to stick whatever the heck they want in between, right? I want them to be able to fill in this middle section. That's where the actual good stuff goes. That's where the actual content goes. So this is the stuff that's going to be the same. I want to leave some way for those other templates to stick their stuff in the middle. How do I do that? What does that look like? What's that called? The block. We need a block. So I create that by saying what? % and then block. And then I give this block a name. We've been calling it content, but this is really similar to a variable name. Call it whatever the heck you want. Call it whatever you want. Okay? Am I good? We gotta end it. So on the next line, we'll say end block. All right? This you can think of as a placeholder for our templates to use. This is not a placeholder for us to stick Python variables into, but this is a placeholder for HTML, more HTML stuff. So now I can actually go back and rewrite my templates using this base template. I can rewrite my templates using this base template. We're going to do this twice, once for each one. Let's start with cross-off. The hope is that all of this duplicate stuff will be gone. I don't want it in here. I want to use the base template. So how do I do that? How do I tell it that I want to use the base template? We say extends. So usually up here at the top, I would say extends base.html. Do I need quotes around that? I thought I might. So it's going to extend this template. I'm still not quite done. I still have a little bit more I need to do. What else do I need to do? I need to put a block in here. I need to actually tell it what's going to go inside of that block. Remember, I left a block here called content. So I need to specify what goes inside of that block. And really, we just have this one line here. Block, content, and then end block. So this template's got it's even smaller now. I'm going to extend this base HTML file, and this line right here is what I want to go into the block portion of this template. We've extended this template out. Is that clear? Are there any questions about that? Yes.
I want to figure out what's the variable and what's the just syntax making it work. Is content the variable? So if we had
Content is the variable, yes. I can have multiple blocks that indicate different sections of my page, but each of them would have a different name associated with them. So if I want to call this something else, right, call it stuff, that's fine, I can, but I need to make sure that there's a block over here that's also called stuff. Those need to match. Those need to match. Stuff is not a very descriptive name, though. Don't call your things stuff in your code. So we need to do this one more time, but it's the same process. It's the exact same process. We just need to do it over here in our edit template. The top part, we don't need it anymore, so I'll take it out. I'll put in my extends. I'll put in that block statement. Oh, did I skip one? Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to be careful about my formatting. Thank you. I don't think that would have broken anything, but it would have bothered me. And then we can get rid of these two guys down here and end our block. Oh, well, okay, come on now. There we go. I just did the exact same thing that I did to the cross off. There just happens to be more stuff on this one. So now you'll notice that both files are a bit shorter because they pull information from our base template. And every time that we add a new page to this particular website, to our Flicklist website, probably going to use that same process, probably going to inherit from the base template. The nice thing about this is, consider if I had, like an email address or something, contact information on the bottom of this page, and then it needed to change for whatever reason. Well, now I can just go here and change it in one place instead of having to go to every single page and update that new email address. That's why this is so valuable. Yeah.
You need to go to your main file and change where it points to.
Do I need to go to my main file and change what now?
Well, you're pointing to cross off and edit. Should you point to base?
Oh, that's a good question. So here I'm rendering cross off, and down here I'm rendering edit. Is that okay? Do I need to change those? No, actually, these are fine. So think about the order of what happens here. I'm saying I want to render the edit template. So the computer says, okay, the edit template, let's go take a look. And then it's going to read this line first. It's right up at the top of the file. It says, oh, the edit template is extending from this base.html template. So then it'll go over here and it'll grab all of this stuff. And then it'll come back here and look and say, okay, they want me to take this stuff and substitute it in for the content block. I'm happy to do that. And then we're done. And then we're good. But we haven't tested it yet. Let's save all of our stuff and test it and see if we broke anything. Hopefully we didn't, but let's see. All right, one last time. There we go. It's running. Go back here and refresh my stuff. This looks fine. It's hard to tell just from looking at the source whether it works or not, right? I can't easily tell, although you can kind of see there's a little gap in between here now that wasn't necessarily there before. So that's maybe a small indication, but just that's the one downside with refactoring, I guess, sometimes is, it doesn't change the behavior. So you just sort of have to trust that it's working. That's the goal though. We didn't want to change the behavior. We didn't want anything to look different. We didn't want anything to behave differently. We just wanted to make things more organized. And I think we succeeded in that goal. Yeah, let's try it out and see. I can put my template up here just so you can check it out. I always make these, I really want to make these 2 words sometimes. I think that'll break it. Check that. Make sure you're not missing a bracket somewhere, something like that. Make sure you got quotes around the base. Those would be common targets. We are at the end of the walkthrough, so you're gonna, yeah, question?
One more question. I found that during the prep work and during the walkthrough just now, I'm having to save a lot, refresh a lot, and also close down the system for running and then restart it before it'll load sometimes. Is that common, or is there maybe just something missing in the midst of that?
I would say that's unexpected. I would say that's not what I would expect to happen. I mean, I have not, I've been forgetting to save, but when I do save, honestly, I think you can sometimes see that it'll automatically picks up the changes that you make. You don't even have to restart it. So if that's something you're having a problem with, I would talk to your TF about that, or find me. We can take a look and see. I can't promise that we'll be able to fix it, but we can at least take a look and see. Is there a question? Yeah.
What would be an example where you have another block in that?
Or we'd have another block?
In the base HTML.
Sure. I mean,
Because like on a header, would you just do a placeholder and pass it, just do the string.format and pass it?
I mean, I've seen a lot of complex pages, right? Take Facebook, for example. If I load up Facebook, here's my Facebook, and I can see that I've got this guy on the left, I've got this other column on the right, I've got this column in the middle, and I've got this whole chat business, which I hate, on the right. And so each one of those could potentially be a block that gets swapped in based on the user that's logged in this particular template. Just as one example. There are others. In fact, I think once you start to get a feel for web design stuff, you go to a website and you'll start picking out those elements. You'll start seeing those just kind of pop out at you naturally, whereas before you didn't really think about it. They were just there. That's how you use the website. Any other questions? Yeah.
On this, you were going to the terminal to create your other files.
Mm-hmm.
Walkthrough, they did it in the coder. Is there a difference, or is this your way to do it?
They both get you to the same place. I wanted to review command line stuff, so I did it on the command line. But if you want to do it through the IDE, that's totally fine. They'll both get you to the same place. It's good to know how to do both, for sure. Any other questions? Any other questions? This should be where Studio 4 picks up. So, when you break up into your groups, you'll switch your branch over to Studio 4, and this should be roughly where Studio 4 starts you. You're going to take it the rest of the way. You're going to fix the last remaining page, get the HTML out of there, and then make a few minor additions to the site as well as part of the studio. We'll regroup at 8 o'clock like we usually do to talk about it. Make sure you get web seeds are submitted today, and I'll see you at 8 o'clock.